Good day, y'all. We have had rain in the desert, so it is a wonderful time to be up and alive with the aroma of life. I want to finish up my assessment of Jacob, the Hebrew patriarch of the Bible, and thus, if we are believers in Jesus Christ and his children, we are this lineage. There's so much that I got into in that video about how this character is a liar and was very unjust from the beginning. And it all began with his treatment of Esau, who came in from the field and was famished to the point that he might have even died. And Jacob would only give him food upon receiving the birthright from his elder brother. Now, the end of Genesis is no better with Jacob, who's by this point advanced in years and nearing death, and does die by the end of the book. And we are here. It just baffles my mind that I was surrounded by people my whole life that go along with this and don't explain these facets to children, because I think it's important. I'll tell my daughter this stuff as soon as she can understand it. Like, I have no problem. Why were my parents not telling me this? They were supposedly Catholics and went to church every Sunday? Did they not read their Bible? Because it's really messed up what goes on in the Old Testament. And you'll get vague statements about that, but that's what I got. But no depth. And the person who painted this or made this painting of Jacob here, I think they gave him a pretty even countenance, but I would have trouble not painting him as a more haggard, rugged individual, because, I think it's pretty plain that splitting your seed between four people, and then beyond that, the two wives you have, which are having one beyond one wife, is crazy in and of itself. Having those two wives that are actually your cousins to begin with, it's so insane that, maybe perhaps you could think of this as a crude time where there weren't as many people and life was very hostile and people awaited God for signs and things like this. We still do this today, but in terms of waiting on signs and trying to interpret what's going on in life with patience and meditation. But in this crazy fever dream of a life that Jacob experienced, it's hard to come out feeling good about the lineage of Israel or the father, the creator. And I think it induces this tribalism. I think there's a lot of good truths in the Bible, as I've stated before, but Jacob is a serious rough patch. So without further ado, let's go into a summation of my points last time, and then we'll finish the video with the end of Genesis, or chapter 48 out of 50, if you will, which is very indicative of Jacob's character. So here's somebody, ex-Mormon on Reddit, said Old Testament Jacob is an asshole. So I enjoy reading religious texts of various religions. I like finding the similarities, and many times there are real moral lessons in the texts. It is also a chance to learn how and why people believe the things they do. So I'm reading the Old Testament right now, and it boggles my mind that anyone could pull a moral framework out of it. There's some things, like I said, I've talked about Job, and there's some things, but in Hebrews you can get, like, it's like you have the code written inside you. Like, this person, is close to me in mindset and mentality, and we have this code. It feels like written in us. We know the true moral truth. It's true moral truth. It's terrible. We know the moral correctedness of action. We see it around us. It makes sense. It's logical. And we know when we do wrong that we have to work our way back to a point where we feel like we've righted our wrong, and it hurts, but it's how we repent. And let's continue along. So I'm reading the Old Testament right now, and it boggles my mind that anyone could pull a moral framework out of it. Almost all of Genesis is rife with bizarre stories that come off as anything from bad to sickening today. Everyone always mentions the Abraham story where he almost kills his son Isaac. Yes, of course, that one is, as he says, it's very commonly heard. But the thing is, it's like God is leading Abraham the whole time, so I don't blame Abraham, the character, as much. Whereas with Jacob's character, it's things are awry. They don't. It's not. It's not God, or it doesn't feel God ordained. It feels like this is some character that snuck his way into the story and is like the big bad wolf daddy of us all, and I don't like it. We'll get into that. Um, Everyone always mentions the Abraham story when he almost kills his son Isaac, but that's really just a sliver of the faux morality presented in the Old Testament. I want to focus on Jacob, or Israel. This guy was a first-class D-bag. I actually find it funny that he's presented as the protagonist, while at the same time he is of obviously dubious moral character. Growing up, he's his mother's favorite child, while his brother Esau is his father's favorite. Esau works as a hunter and farmer, and Jacob makes pottery. This is where it becomes obvious that Jacob is a horrible person, not because he makes pottery, but because of what comes next. One day, Esau comes back from the field on the edge of death, needing something to eat. He begs his brother to feed him. Now I ask this. If you were in this situation, what would you do? You would feed him, right? Any half-decent, rational person would feed him. Jacob doesn't. In fact, Jacob decides to use the moment to manipulate his brother into selling his birthright in exchange for food, which amounts to being in exchange for his life. Asshole. Or a-hole, yeah. Next, we have a story where their father Isaac is close to death. He wants to eat venison one more time and gives his favorite son his blessing. Rebecca, in and of itself, just that whole sentence, the favorite son, it's just so messed up. It should be even. Doesn't, like, ugh. Rebecca, his wife, overhears this, and based on like if discipline, like behavior. If one of them has like killed somebody, or yeah, obviously you're not going to give them the same blessing. That makes sense. You want actually, well, why wouldn't you? That's actually going against Jesus's teachings. You're supposed to pray for your enemies, and actually, yeah, you should give them an even blessing no matter what. Rebecca, his wife, overhears this and goes and gets Jacob and proceeds to convince him to put on an elaborate hairy disguise to trick his father into thinking he is Esau. She also has him get goat meat. Yeah, why? This is ridiculous. I guess it's what they had in the closet, what they had already. So like, oh, we don't have venison, but yeah, use this. This will be fine. He won't know. He's like on the verge of death. We'll pull one over on the old hubby before he croaks. And in what world is goat meat like venison? To feed his father, Jacob then goes and lies to his father, saying he is Esau, and feeds him the goat meat. Isaac is doubtful, but his eyesight not being what it used to be, is convinced by the hair on Jacob's arms. In this way, Jacob steals his father's blessing from Esau. This isn't just a superstitious blessing. Isaac gives all of his servants and people to serve him. Esau is made to serve his brother. Esau is understandably upset by this, and by now effing hates his lying, cheating, manipulative brother. Of course. Rebecca goes to Jacob because you don't get any backstory. Like there's, I angled in on this in the last video. I like maybe if we had more into Esau's character, we would learn that he did some evil things and it made sense to. But no, like they don't give any of that. You're just given this manipulation. Esau, yeah. Rebecca goes to Jacob and says something along the lines of, well, for some reason your brother hates you now. Who could have predicted that? You better make yourself scarce until he calms down. See, it's just this like constant family manipulation. Now Jacob needs a wife. Honestly, all of the Old Testament traditions around marriage are absolutely despicable. Completely agree. Isaac tells Jacob he better not marry one of those filthy Canaanites. So instead, Jacob goes and pays a visit to his uncle. When he gets there, he falls in love with his cousin Rachel. Yep, after staying there, cousin Rachel, blah, blah, blah. Staying there an entire month, his uncle Laban, who also seems to have little integrity, decides to say, hey, you know what? You've been working for me for free for a month. I guess I should start paying you. So he asks what Jacob wants, and Jacob says Rachel. They agree that if he works 7 years, Laban will give him Rachel. I know that was really just the custom of ancient times, but it's, yeah, exactly the sevens we talked about. It's gross. 7 years pass, and 7 years pass, and Laban orders a celebration feast to be made. But instead of giving him Rachel, he sends his less beautiful daughter Leah in the middle of the night. Somehow Jacob doesn't notice until the next morning. And in the context of the Bible, you can be sure this means they consummated the marriage first. So yeah, it's implied that it's gross. So he didn't even know who she was, presumed it was Rachel, and then finds out the next morning, oh, what the? It's ridiculous. In the light of day, Jacob realizes that he's been tricked by his uncle. So he confronts him. Hey man, why'd you do me like that? I said I wanted the pretty one. Laban explains that it is against the local customs for the younger daughter to marry before the first, so the 7 year thing makes sense. He must have been trying desperately to marry Leah off. He says if Jacob works another 7 years, Laban will give him Rachel as well. Yay for sister wives. Yeah, ugh. Jacob agrees and works another 7 years and gets his trophy wife. And we talked about the dealings they do later on. They both have sex with him, have multiple babies with him, and beyond that they're maids. It's just disgusting. Now God has a weird sense of humor, and he wants to punish Jacob for being so effing shallow. Good for God, but he goes for it. He goes about it in a terribly unfair way by making Leah fertile and Rachel barren. Apparently, let's see if everything makes sense. Okay, but apparently Jacob just decided not to have kids with Leah for 7 years because this is where they start having children. After apparently realizing Rachel's uterus is like the Dust Bowl. Ooh, I feel really bad for Leah in this part. She has kid after kid, hoping each one will make Jacob love her, but it never works. God, Jacob's so bad. This is where I've gotten so far. I'm fully expecting more. Oh, it gets worse, buddy. And more terrible things to happen, while at the same time, whoever wrote the story still thought it was okay to keep Jacob as the protagonist. In any other story, Jacob would just be an abusive a-hole who probably gets what he deserves in the end. Old Testament's horrible. I honestly don't know how someone would pull a moral framework from it. It's filled with incest, rape, murder, child sacrifice, and 1,000 other horrible things. I'll end my rant here because I don't have anything else to say, but I can't believe I ever thought this stuff was holy. At least Mormons don't focus. Okay, so this person's a Mormon, so I haven't dug into that, but it seems very weird from the outside. I mean, again, multiple wives and just strange customs. Um, not not really into Brigham Young and the many Mormon characters. Don't think it's gonna be good for people. It doesn't. I actually live close by. I live nearby Utah. I still haven't gone to Utah yet, and I feel like maybe that's part of the reason is there's this looming weirdness. Um, yeah, but yeah, too long didn't read. Jacob is an a-hole who manipulates his starving brother into giving him his inheritance for food, steals his father's blessing, and is a shallow pig who marries his cousins. It's just gross. Like, it's disgusting. And you'd think, like, okay, Jesus as a character, Jesus as a person, Jesus is God. You look at that person and you try to relate that with this person because apparently there is some Jesus in Jacob. And why would have God chosen this person as the Hebrew patriarch? It doesn't make sense unless he had qualities akin to Jesus, and Jesus would never behave the way that Jacob did. So you could think of it as this kind of like crude matter of the Old Testament, like, but like you're arguing so heavily in the favor of what, in my opinion, is plainly, obviously rigged, terrible, manipulative literature designed to break down people, and then they're going along with complete nonsense. So let's get into it. Let's read Genesis 48, which is the continuation of Jacob's horse hooey. I'm going to read it. I'll just have this, here. It's the Septuagint. So it came to pass after these things that it was reported to Joseph. Joseph is, I think it's Rachel's oldest son and like the most blessed of the bunch. Again, there's just they always give certain significance to certain characters, and I don't know. I feel like, anyways. So yeah, Jacob's not feeling well. Jacob's on his deathbed, or on the verge of going into the afterlife. Behold, thy father is ill. And having taken his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, he came to Jacob. And it was reported to Jacob, saying, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh to thee. And Israel, having strengthened himself, sat upon the bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, My God appeared to me in Luzah, in the land of Chanaan, and blessed me, and said to me, Behold, I will increase thee and multiply thee, and will make of thee multitudes of nations. And I will give this land to thee and to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. Now then, thy two sons, who are born to thee in the land of Egypt, before I came to thee into Egypt, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh, Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. And the children which thou shalt beget hereafter shall be in the name of their brethren. They shall be named after their inheritances. And as for me, when I came out of Mesopotamia of Syria, Rachel, thy mother, died in the land of Shanaan. As I drew nigh to the horse course of Shabratha, of the land of Shanaan, so as to come to Ephrathah, and I buried her in the road of the course. This is Bethlehem. And when Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he said, Who are these to thee? And Joseph said to his father, They are my sons, whom God gave me here. And Jacob said, Bring me them, that I may bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim through age, and he could not see. And he brought them near to him, and he kissed them, and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I have not been deprived of seeing thy face. And lo, God has showed me thy seed also. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees. Interesting choice of words. And they did reverence to him, with their face to the ground. And Joseph took his two sons, both Ephraim in his right hand, but on the left of Israel, and Manasseh on his left hand, but on the right of Israel, and brought them near to him. But Israel, having stretched out his right hand, laid it on the head of Ephraim, and he was the younger, and his left on the head of Manasseh, guiding his hands crosswise. So the right is on the younger, and that's what's the significant hand. And he blessed them and said, The God in whose sight my fathers were well-pleasing, even Abraham and Isaac, the God who continues to feed me from my youth until this day, the angel who delivers me from all evils, bless these boys, and my name shall be called upon them in the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them be increased to a great multitude on the earth. And Joseph, having seen that his father put his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it seemed grievous to him, because it's as custom to give them the better, like the higher blessing or significance. And Joseph took hold of the hand of his father to remove it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, father, for this is the firstborn. Lay thy right hand upon his head, because that's the way. And it's but even then it's messed up. Like they should even have this ceremony to begin with. It should be even. There shouldn't be any significance to the hands. But the fact that there is a significance, and going forward here, lay thy right hand upon his head. And he would not, but said, I know it, son, I know it. He also shall be a people, and he shall be exalted. But his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And it's disgusting. And he blessed them in that day, saying, In you shall Israel be blessed, saying, God make these Ephraim and Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I die, and God shall be with you, and restore you to the land of your fathers. And I give to thee, Sisma, a select portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorites with my sword and bow. So he goes on to recognize all of his children, and that's a pretty interesting section in and of itself. But just talking about 48 here, he pulls the same bullshit that quote unquote God pulled when said that the lesser would, not the lesser, the younger would be the one who produces the greater nations, and the older, the younger over the older, the younger over the older. And it's this strange nepotistic manipulation of the mind that goes on here, because you're endeared to this character who does nothing but behave terribly the entire time. And I compare Jacob to these two that I have. You guys seen Breaking Bad? Have you guys seen The Sopranos? I've seen both of these shows. They're shows I'm quite familiar with, and neither of these characters is remotely endearing when you really think about it. Walter White is like at the beginning of the show, when you understand he has cancer. We're digging into whether the legitimacy of all of that, given how much they lie about. But let's pretend that he has some fatal disease, right? Walter White. And he knows that at his pay grade as a chemistry teacher, where people don't even listen in his classrooms and his situation, he's never going to be able to afford the things that he needs to before he passes on, because he wants to support his family. So he takes it upon himself to make meth and sell it with one of his former students. And it gets really messed up, and he goes above and beyond what he needed to do and in his initial intention, and it goes to his head. And it's the same idea as a very similar idea to Tony Soprano here, where um, although Walter had a lot more light at the beginning than Tony. Tony's already part of the mob. He's already doing evil things, rigging things, stealing money, just behaving all around horrible. Runs a strip club, becomes the mob boss, of course. Runs the strip club where their mob meetings are. It's very depraved behavior. Him and his wife never have a relationship. It gets worse and worse as the show goes on, and you can say the same for pretty much all the cast. These are these dark spiral stories, and none of the characters are very likable in the slightest. Even the good, quote unquote, good ones in Breaking Bad are really hard to watch because their performances are cringy, and it's it's akin to this Jacob stuff. It's like they're like trying to endear you to people that are gross, and you shouldn't feel the need to say I believe in Jesus, therefore I believe in the Bible. Like I just disagree. I think you can believe in Jesus and believe in red words only. Maybe you like other aspects of the Bible, but just when you have so many corrupt characters like this, it really takes the weight out of significant sections. So I'm going to say it here. The second half of Genesis, I believe Jacob starts in about 25 and Genesis goes to 50 chapters, is pretty hogwash. I like it. It's not, it might be helpful to understand what may have been true of strange customs back then, but it's so gross, and the characterizations of these people are really grotesque, and I don't think it's that helpful in understanding the great book of life, honestly. I think it's manipulative to the mind, like many other aspects are of the Bible, and you have to be very careful when reading these books and really study them thoroughly and deeply, because you do not want to go head first into something that is intentionally made to break you down or take you away from your true path of as being a good, kind person that eagerly seeks to help and also seeks out justice and righteousness and without fear. This whole section doesn't help me at all. Jacob was very secretive. Jacob was gross. Jacob, in my opinion, was very adulterous. You could argue, oh, they're both of his wives, but I disagree. I think you have one. I think Jesus really sets the tone with monogamy. Makes sense. And I don't think that even if it was quote unquote before Jesus, it's you would think you'd see characteristics of Jacob that echo, and they don't. So, yeah, just coming at you here with another biblical video. Let me know if you guys like these, and I'm gonna dig further. Obviously, having read all this before, going through it again, I remember having a rough time in Exodus as well because it's grotesque and there's a lot of morally corrupt characters, as corrupted characters as our Redditor earlier discussed. Um, it's just I wish we had uh, more texts that hone specifically in on our behavior and things we ought to be doing. And the reality is we do, and I will be talking about this text soon, the Essene Gospel. I've been reading that. I'm pretty far into that now. And of course, there's the hand signage on the front of the book. I'll get into it, but there's a lot of good moral lessons in there that strike a chord with me. So we'll go through that. I think it'll be fun. Let you guys know. Let me know what you guys think about the Essene Gospel. All right. Have a good day, y'all. Look forward to talking to you soon.